Hi, welcome to the channel. In this week's video, we're going to talk more about nursing. I'm a travel nurse up here in West Virginia, and today we're going to talk with a new nurse and find out what it's like becoming a new nurse during a pandemic. We're going to talk deep in the subject of COVID and what it's like working in a critical care unit during a pandemic. All the way here in West Virginia, visiting me, my wife, Kelly. All right, Kelly, thank you for getting on camera. Tell us, first off, is nursing everything that you thought it would be?
Absolutely not. I think we have an idea of what nursing is or should be, and then we go to school and we learn all kinds of stuff about nursing, specifically about safety and I don't know, like textbook world, and then you get out in the real world and you find out like the hidden secret of nursing. It's nothing like you thought it would be, and it's nothing like a textbook.
Okay, so this is a second career for you.
Actually, if we're counting, it's my sixth career.
Sixth
But
career. Okay.
I got a few miles on these tires.
Yeah. So tell us why nursing.
Well, it's real interesting. When Jonnie and I were planning our wedding and saving up money for the ceremony and the honeymoon, I took kind of a part-time gig, and her ER is somebody they call a sitter, who sits basically with behavioral health or psych patients to make sure they don't harm themselves. Sometimes you'll sit with somebody that has they're coming down off of drugs to again make sure they don't harm themselves, or sometimes you're with someone with a dementia or altered mental status, and again you're trying to make sure they don't hurt themselves. So it's a hands-off position. You're just there as a second set of eyes for the nurse in the room. And when I was in that environment, I knew there was a nursing shortage, and I looked around and I really thought this would be something that could help me make a difference. At the time, I was self-employed, and for any of you that have ever been self-employed, you're employed 24/7. You're either handling the business, trying to get the business, trying to manage customers, clients, sometimes employees. And I thought this would be nice. I'll come in for my 3 shifts a week and be off for 4 days. So I thought I could make a difference. And I also thought maybe I'd have more home life balance because I wouldn't be employed 24/7 as a business owner.
True, true. So tell us this, because most people, you were part of the classic COVID. That's what we always referred it to. You didn't get clinicals, that kind of thing. What was it like being a student during the pandemic where you weren't allowed in schools and graduating, starting the field with not much clinical experience? What's it been like?
Well, it's actually been horrible. The whole time we were in school, it was bad because they took it to online schooling. And nursing is really more of a hands-on type of profession. Learning how to start IVs, learning how to draw blood, putting in a catheter for a Foley. There's all these hands-on skills that we only got to do on mannequins, and the anatomy and the reaction from a mannequin isn't anything like a human person when you go to stick them with that needle in their IV. So it's just been really challenging as far as that goes. And then the online instruction, not to bash anyone, but basically we had an instructor reading the textbook into an audio recording that we listened to on our own time. So, I mean, it was nothing like a Zoom call where there was class participation and people could discuss or dialogue. It was very watered down. And at the time, it was a scary time because you didn't want the board of nursing to shut the school down and then have your graduation delayed inevitably till after the pandemic. But in the meantime, I feel like we really got shortchanged on our education, whether it was from the textbook angle or the clinical angle.
And starting during a pandemic, I mean, they're hiring nurses with very little experience because there's such a nursing shortage.
There's been such a nursing shortage for so long now. The hospitals basically recruit and know that they're going to have to do these graduate nurse fellowship programs. You have anywhere from a 2 to 3 month time frame where it's blended learning on the floor with a nurse that's more seasoned than you, which sometimes means they graduated 3 to 6 months before you did. or you're in a classroom where you're getting some, knowledge behind what kind of care you're going to give at the bedside. So hospitals have adapted to that even pre-COVID. One unique thing our unit has done is we've actually hired a lot of LPNs. So many years ago, hospitals had kind of pushed LPNs to the side, and our hospital's been bringing them in. And every shift, I'm so thankful for those LPNs. They have 8, 10, 15, 20 plus years of experience, and they're just always so helpful to me. They come by and check on me and help me pass meds or get IVs started or draw blood. So, I mean, that is one great thing about
That's
where I
cool.
work is the teamwork.
So let me ask you this. You know, I've been like a witness. You graduated, and instead of getting into the baby pool and kind of learning, on a slow pace, you literally kind of just went down to the deep end, got up on the diving board, and you just jumped. I mean, you landed knee deep when you graduated. You're in one of the hardest units. Every time I talk to you, you've got 5 patients on a unit when, you're not, that's not the expectation. And you just kind of like full force fell knee deep into the worst part of the hospital.
Well, our unit is especially challenging. Typically, it's supposed to be the patient acuity. You would have 3 to 4 patients, and with staffing the way it is and the patient census the way it is, we typically definitely always have 4, sometimes 5 patients. And it's just, it's just kind of crazy. Um, as Jonnie knows, and some of you know, when I was in school, I really always had my heart set on being an ER nurse. I wanted to take after my wife, but with the lack of education and clinicals that we had, I knew for sure I wasn't ready to be an ER nurse. It just, the thought of who knows what's coming through that door and me missing something or not catching something, I didn't want that responsibility. Yet I knew I wanted to be in a critical care arena. So the step down unit I'm in, it's called a progressive care unit. You're not critical enough to be in ICU, but you're too sick to be where somebody has 5 to 6 patients, and you need to be on the heart monitors. We monitor your oxygen level. So it's a very challenging floor as far as that goes.
Awesome. If you don't mind, I'm going to get a little controversial on the channel here, just for a brief second.
Okay,
A lot of
it's your
people,
channel.
well, I feel like we talk to a lot of people. We hear a lot. There's multiple news stations that you can listen to, and this virus is made into a very big political scheme. What do you call it? Political joke, whatever. For a nurse to hear that, it's very hard. Anytime someone starts talking about it's just political, it's all political, it's very upsetting to me. Tell me how you feel about it.
Well, there's probably a difference between how I feel last year when I was in school, at home, with my dog on my lap, trying to graduate school on time, and this year where I take care of people until they get so bad they go to ICU and they get intubated, and then I hear X amount of time later that they've passed away or they're still on the intubator. We don't keep track of the patients, and per HIPAA, we don't get in their charts after they're not our patient and different things, but you see obituaries, and honestly, I don't know of any patients of mine that went to ICU that got better and came off the ventilator. And so the hard part about my unit is when they come into the hospital for COVID, typically they come straight to our unit. They might go to a medical floor, which is lesser care, but typically they come straight to our unit because the doctors want the heart monitor, the oxygen monitor, they want that monitoring on our level. And we have all these different things we do with the oxygen. We do high flow nasal cannula, then we put a non-rebreather on it, and then eventually they go to this machine that's called a vapotherm, which is before the ventilator, and then they go on to something that's called a BiPAP that also infuses oxygen, and then they get to the point where that's not even working and you have to call a code, and they come and they put the tube down their throat and they get whisked off to the ICU. So it's been really challenging the past, feels like month or two. I guess it's been maybe 2 months at this point. And, again, not getting political, It's strange to me how many have been in their 30s and 40s. They still have small children at home. We've had husbands and wives, multiple pairs of husbands and wives. We've had a few older people that have been vaccinated and ended up in our unit, but by and large, most of them are not vaccinated. And then the other strange thing is I've noticed it's typically men. If I had to guess, without, again, we can't look into charts. I can't see everybody on the unit's chart, only the charts, the patients that I'm giving care to. But it seems like by and large, if I had to say, 8 out of 10 of the patients are men. So I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah. One of the comments that I always like, I mean, when you're talking about a virus, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or Christian or atheist or white or black or
don't believe in science.
you don't, yeah. And honestly, it is. I mean, it is female and male. It may be more prevalent where you're at male, and I get that. But for me, it's very hard for me when people try to make it political, or when they try to make it, scripture says you shouldn't get vaccinated. I've never read that scripture before. I feel like I've read through the Bible, but it's very hard. Those are the comments that are very hard for me. So you do better with them than I do. I do have to say that. But we recently we stayed in a hotel when Kelly first came in, and somebody got on the elevator. We got on the elevator. We both had masks on. Somebody started to get on, and I said, "Sir, do you have a mask on? Do you have a mask?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Would you mind taking the next elevator?" And thankfully the elevator door closed, and he really didn't get a chance to respond. But Kelly, you had tell us what happened to you, why you were there.
Yeah, that was a younger gentleman, and when Jonnie asked him about the mask, he said no, and he kind of took a step back, so you could tell he was gonna, whether he believed in masks or vaccines or not, he was gonna respect our wishes. So then I had a different experience. I went down to get us our breakfast to bring it up to the room and get Jonnie her coffee, and when I got on the elevator, have you ever seen when, like the doors like almost closed and somebody jumps in? I had this guy kind of jump in the elevator, and he didn't have a mask on, and I said, "Sir, do you have a mask?" And he kind of like fake checked his pockets without his fingers ever going in his pockets, and he said, "Oh no." And I said, "Oh, well, have you been vaccinated?" He's like, "Oh, I'm not sure." And I said, "You would know if you'd been vaccinated." And he's like, "Well, your mask will be good enough. You have a mask on." And I said, "Well, thank you very much being sloppy with other people's health. You don't know who's on chemotherapy.
Right.
You don't know who's immunosuppressed." So I felt like I let him know his actions weren't very copacetic. I mean, he could have waited for another elevator, but he chose to just boldly come in. He saw that I had a mask on, and he still, went about his business. And honestly, Jonnie and I don't like masks. When the CDC first said those that were fully vaccinated didn't have to wear a mask, we stopped wearing a mask. But with this Delta variant, like filling up the ICUs, and there's a few cities close to home, they're like 4 or 5 hours south from us, they're out of hospital bed, they're out of ICU beds. And the thing is, you hear that on the news, and you may or may not know what that really means. Most of the time,
People don't believe it. People don't believe it.
It doesn't mean they don't have a room. It means they don't have a nurse to take care of the room.
Or they don't have rooms.
They might or might not have the physical space, but they don't have the person to take care of those people. Mm-hmm. And there's such a nursing shortage as it is. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. Yeah. So the one thing I would have never guessed about nursing, the thing that's the surprise to me about nursing, is here I was self-employed and kind of envious of Jonnie, that when she was at work, she worked hard, and from what I could tell from her coworkers, she was well respected. She'd won the Daisy Award. She had won other accolades at her hospital. I could tell like she was a good nurse without even really knowing that, just from what I knew of her. And I would see her come home, and she worked hard, played hard. She has lots of hobbies, as those on you the channel has seen. But my problem is I can't leave it at work. I'm really struggling with that. This whole week that I've been here with Jonnie, I'm still thinking about different people, like room 17. Are they still there? Did they have to go get intubated? I'm thinking about room 30 that I found out right before I came passed away, and I took care of them for 2 weeks. And I just am having a hard time leaving it at work. And even when I consciously say I'm not going to think about it, I'm not going to message people back home and see how different numbers are doing, room numbers are doing. But I have nightmares. Last night, Jonnie and I were sleeping, and I had a nightmare that there was 2 codes going on at the same time, and somebody was yelling, "Why wasn't I in one of the rooms?" And they're like, "Well, the other code's hers too. She's with her other patient." So it's just, I would have never guessed that I couldn't just clock out and leave it behind. As a self-employed person, that was what I was looking for. Go work your 36 hours a week, be done with it. And it just really hasn't. That hasn't happened for me. I need to learn that buzzword of 2021, self-care, and learn how to leave work at work and not bring it home with me on my other hours of the week.
There you go. Oh, tough times, tough times. So, thank you for doing this. We went to dinner. We were talking about the pandemic and being a nurse, and how hard it is now to be a nurse. And one of the things that we do want people to know that it is for real. It's serious. It's for real. So, thanks for doing this.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
Sorry, I was crying.
It's all right. It's hard to leave it at work sometimes. In the ER, it's a little bit easier because the patients go upstairs, and and we don't get in their charts either. You can't get in their charts afterwards. So it's tough. This is a tough career. So it'll be so much better when you're on the road traveling with me, and we're hopefully working in the same hospital. So
yeah, I don't know that I'll ever be an ER nurse, though. I really like progressive care.
Yeah.
There have been some good moments in the 6 months that I've been graduated, and there are some people that I really made a difference for. There was a gentleman that came in, and can I say his age? Or is that breaking?
You can say
He was
age.
82, and he had COVID last November, and his heart was infected. It was a newer thing called COVID heart. And he was in the hospital. You can't have visitors.
Yeah.
And I was in there, and I was doing some of my tasks, and I was just making small conversation, just being friendly. And he said, "Wow, it's so nice to be able to talk to somebody." And so it's COVID room. I'm gowned up. I have my PPE on, but we're not really supposed to stay in the rooms. They call it care clustering, where you go in and get everything done that you need to, and
get
you're
out.
only in there 2, maybe 3, 4 times in the 12-hour shift. Well, I was, making conversation and making sure he had everything he needed as far as food, snack, beverage, and just trying to take that little extra care. And he just really, acknowledged that and thanked me. And then I found out a few weeks later he didn't make it. But I felt like in that time,
You made a difference.
I was one of the last people he shared time with, and I made a difference.
Amen.
So.
All right. So I don't want to leave it on a sad note, but we do appreciate you listening. We appreciate everyone out there that, being responsible, and this is just a little part of the nursing on the channel. So I'm enjoying being a travel nurse. I'm enjoying kind of making plans to go to my next stop, and hopefully it'll not be in a hot spot. But I feel like it's ramping up everywhere now. So, but thank you for listening. Thank you for following along. Thank you, Kelly, for sharing your story, and we'll see you on the next video.
Thank you for supporting Jonnie's channel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.